Dive into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship, innovation, and business with Caplander, hosted by Jody and Morgan of J. Consulting. Whether you're invested in the private capital markets, building your own venture, or curious about the entrepreneurial spirit, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping today's market and the people driving what's next. Caplander connects the dots between personal and professional life because how you do anything is how you do everything. Featuring expert guests, deep discussions, and a dynamic mother-daughter duo, Caplander is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Morgan. How you feeling, honey?
I am feeling like I'm just about 38 weeks pregnant. So, and also this child of mine has a very strong spirit, and she is not even remotely interested in heading downstream at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, she is not head down. She's either head up or head sideways. And when
correct.
she was head down, then she decided that was she knew what the next step was going to be. So she was like, yeah, no, thank you. I'm going to work my way back up. But I have a
Yeah.
feeling that she's going to have to be told that, listen, little lady, this is going to happen the easy way or the hard way, but the only way is going to be out. So it's happening. And I would highly recommend that you do a little boot scoot and booty and turn yourself around because it'll be more fun to come out that way than the other way.
Look, I'm a local celebrity at the public pool now because I've got all of I've said this before, but you don't just show up at a 50-meter pool not knowing how to swim laps. Like anybody who's swimming laps at an Olympic sized pool has at least knows how to
I know.
swim. Right.
I swam there with you before, and
Right.
I'm coming tomorrow. I'm gonna swim with you there tomorrow. Bathing
Right.
suit packed.
Right. Well, so I've got my buddies, and there's like these two older gentlemen in particular. One of them, I kid you not, like sits there and tans, which I thought we were kind of done with
I
because we
think I've
have.
seen him. Isn't he the older guy a little bit?
And
Yeah.
he can't straight up. He sits there for hours and
We
tans.
figured he made it this far. He died from any
Right.
kind of
He's
skin
like, why
cancer, so he
not?
doesn't give a shit. He's done.
No, but I've
Yeah.
got my friends over there because I swim. I swim my mile, my 40 minutes, and then I do my handstands. And I am like the local celebrity because I am this pregnant woman. I'm the only pregnant person who's out there. And I am definitely the only person besides like a 4-year-old boy who is doing a handstand.
Somersaults and handstands in the
Right.
pool.
Right, exactly, but the difference is part of the bump is out of the water, so it
Right.
really is like, I can only imagine what it
I'm
does
gonna
look like.
videotape you
Yeah,
tomorrow when we swim so that we can get the visual effect of this.
yeah, exactly, so, well, before we get into our guest for today, I think there's a couple of different things. One is, we thought it would be fun to do a comp update since obviously we're compensation experts and that's our area of expertise. But Jody, we have been on a lot more calls together, especially lately getting ready for this baby because you're going to be taking over my schedule. But maybe you want to share a little bit of what you've heard from clients and kind of what your perspective is on what's going on in the market.
Well, I'm seeing, first of all, we're really busy with both selling data and then the consulting. We've had a lot of interesting calls, a lot of investment firms that have dry powder, which means they have money to deploy and invest. And we're really hearing them be very positive on making sure that they keep their staffs engaged and that their compensation in line. And we're also working with several corporate venture firms, same thing. They've gotten the money from the parent company and they want to make sure that their comp structures are in place. And I hear also that there's a lot of question around staff level compensation. So it's not just the chiefs and VPs or the investment professionals or the managing general partners. There's also a lot of attention to the people who are in the firm because my sense of it is they're not hiring a lot of people. So who they're hiring, they really care about. They want the cohesiveness inside of the firms and they do not want to have any turnover.
I think that's right, and then that's a lot of on the investment firm side of it too,
Even
where
private company, we've been asked to price a couple of staff level projects for clients that we've already done the executive comp for, and they want more in depth because they've raised capital, they're thinking about some kind of liquidity, and they need to make sure that they have the right comp structure in place for their director level and below.
Yeah, I think the staff level piece of it is also we've heard that individuals at those director level roles and below, so the manager, the staff level, which is anything from entry level, junior level employees, are less focused right now on the equity
Equity.
alone.
Yeah.
Right. They care about the equity piece, but they also are they're not foregoing the equity in lieu of cash.
Show me the money. They want the money
They do.
because they know, yeah, that the equity could turn out, but in a lot of I even hear this from people who are coming in to be on boards for private companies where usually it was only equity driven. Now they're like, I need cash because I know that if the equity is going to amount to anything, it's going to be a long time down the road. And I also know it's a real gamble.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is what people at the top and the very sophisticated individuals at private companies have known for a long time because they haven't been willing to forego the cash in lieu of the equity. They have taken both. I mean, we see that with CEO premiums, but the staff level side is really different. I mean, I spend a good chunk of time even browsing Reddit, right? And there's a lot of people who talk about the career pieces and like, I got
What
an
do you
offer.
browse on Reddit?
I mean, I read a lot of, like, things that would not are not work related. Like, I like all the things of, like, the social aspects of it too. I mean,
Like what? You ask a question or you're just going on Reddit seeing what people
I'm a
are talking
snoozer.
about?
I just like to read what other people are writing. I just wanna be in the background of it. Like, I'm like a sponge that way. Like, I like to
A little
know.
bit of everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like just to know what people are talking about. I mean, right now I'm like really big into my entire Instagram feed is oh god, what's his name? Victor from Norway is he's the striker on their World Cup team. And I absolutely lost my I thought it was the funniest thing. Him and Channing Tatum did a commercial for Nike Soccer and Channing Tatum wore a blonde wig to look like him. And I thought it was
Hilarious.
no, the whole thing's fun. I mean, all the World Cup stuff is like just I mean, I love the
You have no
African
idea
culture.
if you have not in Miami to watch this. I was over at
You're
Aventura Mall yesterday, and they literally have TV set up, and people are lying on the floor watching this. Like, they bring their neck things to watch
Well,
this.
you could
It's
see the difference, like, Lionel Messi playing over the weekend. I mean, and it was so hot, and you could see the other team they were they were dehydrated and struggling, and Lionel Messi's like, "I live in Miami, like, this is
right.
nothing for me." Then I think that is part of the difference is in the beginning, the Norwegian team, when they came to the US, they spent time just laying outside.
They try
It
right, they're trying to get up to speed
adjust.
with the heat. Same thing with Wimbledon. You know, they're trying to go, I was listening to John McEnroe was saying that a lot of the tennis players try and go change and go and train in Qatar because they need to get comfortable with the heat and humidity.
Yeah.
What are we wearing these
Oh, I
days for
know.
the heat? What is the heat wardrobe?
Look,
I
I'll
have my
tell
heat wardrobe on like even some guy in the grocery store today said to me, that looks very airy. It's a little airy dress. I like the dress stitch right now.
Oh, yeah? Dress stitch? None of my RIP to my entire summer wardrobe because I put on a dress the other day and I kid you not, I was like, "Did this ever fit?" Like, it's hard to imagine, and this top and this is like my 4th of July shirt. This is like my Frank and Eileen red, white, and blue button down, and, like, honestly, the sleeves are short because my boobs are so big that the sleeves are, like, up like crop top. Like, the whole thing is
Nice,
up.
Morgan.
Just want you to
Very
know.
nice.
I just
I am liking the summer dresses. I am liking the stuff that has no shape to it. I think that's really stylish. And I'm also liking the sets.
yeah.
Things that have the matching top and bottom where it's just that at least you look organized, even though you feel completely disheveled because it's been hot everywhere.
Yeah, it's been hot everywhere. I think I saw a woman wearing a pair of the Alaya leopard flip-flops, and those were great, and she was
I
wearing a
I
set
cannot
with
wear
it.
flip-flops. I wanna be able to wear flip-flops, and I love those ones, the flip-flops with the heels,
Yeah,
but I cannot put something between my toes. One of my girlfriends said that that just takes practice, like, you gotta get your toes ready for that, but I don't know, that's never worked for me. What do you
yeah.
think?
I mean, I like the whole flip-flop look in general. I think that all of the flowy sets, like, I don't think anybody does it better than, like, a piece apart or Natalie Martin, like, all those kind of vacation wear pieces that are really
I
more
am a BA and SH, Barbara and Sharon. I'm gonna say it again, so We can hopefully send them this clip and they'll send me something to wear. But I think BA and SH, and I had to exchange something there today. And of course, I walked out with something else. It's just so tempting. And you can envision yourself in it. I'm going to bring it when I come to St. Louis. It all works. Like these women are smart.
Yeah. I have one of my absolute work wardrobe 101 jackets is a BA and SH
We
blazer.
bought it
And
together. I think we
yeah,
bought it in Miami.
it is. It's a gray and black herringbone blazer, and I get more runway out of that jacket than anything else, and
I
it
shopped
goes
at
with
their store in
everything.
London yesterday when we're at the Aventura Mall, which is like the size of 10 football fields, I might add. And everybody was in there because, of course, easy to walk the mall with the air condition and the added benefit of the TV being on and the people watching the World Cup. But I went into Bloomingdale's and they had a whole separate BA and SH section inside of there, which is like the size of a major store. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really part of it. I mean, we've had with Margaret O'Leary on, right, and talking about the retail piece of it. I think that in the same way that people are changing their tune on AI, that also the way that people are shopping and going to stores has, I think that whole tune has also really
Become
changed.
much more, people like it.
Yeah.
Try it on, see what the colors look like. I
Right.
love it.
Well, this is even like the last piece of this is Brett Neal, who's a high-end jewelry designer, opened an entire showroom, and I was reading about it in the New York Times because she wanted the showroom place to feel like you were walking into her home, to create this luxury environment, really personalized shopping experience. And look, her jewelry is expensive. Nor like things
Yeah,
you're
everything's
not
expensive.
everything's expensive. So it makes sense that if you're going to go in and invest
Yeah,
in
you wanna
your
have a nice experience. It's all about the experience, not
right,
just the piece of jewelry.
right,
I couldn't
exactly.
agree with that more than, I mean, how much do we talk about how AI is great, but we want service people who are like, "How can I help you? No problem with that. What would you like?" Being positive and, that whole,
I think
high
that's
level
the
of
whole
tension.
emphasis.
Yeah,
Exactly. Is that now there's this whole lane where people are saying, like, and I was reading in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend that these big tech companies, public tech companies have changed their tune on layoffs and people losing their jobs in the wake of AI. And this kind of comes all the way full circle to what you were saying about the investment firms is that if you have somebody in a role and they're able to utilize AI and kind of have that help make their mundane tasks easier,
right, easier.
it doesn't take the place of somebody being creative or somebody being innovative. It just helps kind of smooth things along. But at the end of the day, I love to walk into a curated boutique and be able, like a Margaret O'Leary store, for example, and be able to really pull pieces where you're like, I have not seen this online. This
Yeah,
feels
so
like an
fun.
elevated
Wanna
experience.
try it. And then
Right.
you have surprises, not only about what you didn't like, but what you did like.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Well, I think that wraps us as nicely because it's all a lot of mindset and it's a very elite group of people. And that's really, this is kind of where Julie Jackle comes in, or somebody like Julie Jackle, who's the founder of CEO of Growth Access. And she partners with CEOs and leadership teams for private life science companies, tech companies, and AI companies to build adaptive, resilient organizations. Julie has supported and advised founders and CEOs navigating some of the most consequential leadership moments in their company's growth from seed through IPO and beyond through executive coaching. Hello and welcome to the Kaplander podcast, Julie. We're so excited to have you join us.
Thanks for inviting me today. I appreciate it. It's nice to see you both.
I've even had a referral of yours from an executive, someone who was looking for CEO or compensation for a role that they were coming into. And, we appreciate that. Everyone's always looking at not only their leadership style and how to be successful, but how to get paid for it. So with that, maybe you can fill us in on what you do. And for those that are listening who have all kinds of interest in making sure that they have the best skills and resources, how do you help?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm an executive coach and CEO advisor. I've been doing this for 17 years. And just context on me, because I think, being a coach isn't something someone usually starts off in life doing. You have to have some sort of relevant experience. So my first life was in finance and banking. I was a strategy consultant at Bain. And then my last role was in product innovation. And I had a coach there. And what I found was that it was the people innovation that was unlocked for product innovation. So that really informs the work that I do. And the work that I do now is coaching CEOs and their teams through growth. And my favorite is working in life sciences, but I also do work in technology and services in scaling companies. And I find it's the what got you here won't get you there. And, to found a company, especially in life sciences, you have to be almost slightly crazy to believe that you can get something off the ground. And so
You
that's
mean because of the science, you have to really believe in the science and you're coming up with something so innovative.
it's both the science, but all the things around it, right? Fundraising. I don't know if you've ever talked to a CEO lately, but the fundraising to get something off the ground and develop the skills to build it also. And there's so much competition. And so you have to be crazy. And then to go from 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000 requires a different skill set. And so CEOs don't have the awareness of what they're good at and what they're not good at. They're going to be blocked and they're not going to
So
be
how
able.
much of it do you think is because you say that, right? Are there born leaders? Are there people who don't need a coach, people who just get it and can do it? Or do you think that everybody could use a little guidance?
Hmm, I don't know that everybody needs guidance, but and there's some people that are born with a natural instinct of both strategic leadership and emotional intelligence. But I'd say for most folks, people that are really bright get stuck and there's a right way to do things. And so they keep doing things they've always done to be successful, even if it doesn't work for them, because they think that's what's causing the success. And so as they grow and learn to build the awareness and to balance their style as they grow is really critical.
Interesting. I I think that take is like it sounds so simple, but it's obviously very complex. So, okay, let's talk. So, I just want to clarify one piece. So, do you work mainly with private company CEOs or do you do any public company work?
Yeah, I definitely do public company work. I worked with, one of my clients started out, I was coaching the CEO as he was shutting down his last company. He called me as he was scaling his team. They're now a public company, $12 billion market cap, and navigating all the things post IPO. And so, but my favorite place is working from it through the growth company because there's such a
Right.
messy puberty trajectory they go through.
So
What
how
do you
would you work with a company like an OpenAI or SpaceX? I mean, obviously those CEOs are pretty capable, but maybe not. So if you're in a situation like that where all of a sudden they have had this major IPO and wealth creation and a lot of the team really doesn't have to work, what kind of skills come into play in a highly successful environment?
That's a really good question. So it depends on the team. So I think the first part is always getting data to see what is working, what's not. And so I love to do 360s and get data of just what's the perception of the leadership and how it's supportive and empowering, how it's, not supportive and doing the opposite of the intention. And from there, if someone's doesn't have to work, the CEO has to want to do the work, right? So
Like, look at Elon Musk, right? Because he doesn't have to do shit. He just right? He's obviously a very wealthy man, and he wants to be a trillionaire. So he's doing this because he obviously loves it. He is innovative and excited, and he wants to do the most, creative things to boil the ocean. So if you were gonna coach somebody like that, and you're not gonna do a 360 for somebody like him.
Yeah, I think it starts with what they want. So what does Elon Musk want to get out of coaching? What's the change that he actually has appetite for? And then aligning the coaching to those goals. So,
Yeah.
if someone so I think it's just you have to fit it in with their goals, and then that's how we drive the coaching.
what is the pressure point for why a CEO would come to you? There has to be some like top couple of scenarios where somebody's like feeling a pinch in one way or another, or hitting a point or banging their head against a wall enough times where they're like,
Yeah, like,
okay,
when
this
they know
hurts.
what they've been doing to get there is not what they're gonna they need to keep doing to go further.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say scaling their first teams is definitely a challenge. So if you've had a small flat company and you're building an organization where not everyone is aligned and flat and owners, so shifting of how you lead, how do you manage, motivate, how do you give feedback? How do you make sure you don't keep the wrong people too long? I'd say if there's a
I
big
need I need help with the giving feedback. So how do you give feedback?
okay, sure.
Morgan, I
It's
swear to God, I'm gonna kill you.
it's the number one thing I'd say people struggle with, to be honest, so it's a great question,
See,
Jody.
Morgan, it's not just me. Okay, go ahead, I wanna know.
I think it's doing, there's, I don't know if you've heard the model radical candor, but there's sort of a 2 by 2 around being direct and being clear. And, it's best to be direct and clear. And if you can be, and clear is kind. And so if you can build, I think first it's the mindset to know that clear is kind. And that's a Brene Brown quote. Because a
I'm writing
lot of
this
folks,
down.
most people avoid the feedback at all costs, and then they wait till they're ready to fire somebody. And so giving it real time and then giving it with just the facts, right? A lot of people kind of add in judgments. There's a model I love called nonviolent communications. It's a terrible name, NVC, but it's one of the most powerful things to have people talk about what are the needs of the organization, what are the needs of the team, and therefore, what is my request of you to do something different versus saying you screwed up, you
Right.
are slow to respond, and therefore, and so if you can give it in clear ways that are objective, that makes a big difference.
Okay. Morgan, did you hear that? Nonviolent communication.
Also, did you hear that clear is kind?
Clear is kind. So if you know,
Kind.
this is I know, no. Being clear is being kind. If you're not making it like you're a fuck nut and you screwed up and you're an idiot, that is different than saying that we need to be able to put the ropes in the pool to be able to swim laps. Can you help with that?
Julie,
So
Jody's had a week with this. Jody's had like a 2 weeks
I've
with
had
this.
a 2-week thing with
Yeah,
this.
we've,
Yeah.
and obviously Jody's a CEO. So we're chuckling behind the scenes with it because Jody is very clear and very direct. And there are pieces of it where sometimes it can be abrasive to somebody who is not used to that type of candor. So
Right.
that's kind
And
of
I
part of
have stopped, to your point, all joking aside. I used to be the kind of authoritative position because of other things going on in my life where I was, either scared or up against a wall, where I would also be extremely abrasive and I would speak to people badly. And I would hear the feedback of nothing about what I said structurally about giving, feedback around what wasn't working, but only about the fact that I was use a swear word, or that I was yelling, or that something wasn't nice. So I've stopped doing that, and I only am being direct, saying not even about the person, but about the behavior and what needs to change to get to the end result. It's still not getting me very far, but I am trying. I have adjusted, but God knows what I'm going to have to do at this point.
Yeah, well, I'd say the thing is you psychological safety, which I'm sure you've heard of. For someone to receive something, there has to be psychological safety. And so if you're, some of us, especially CEOs, can be naturally intimidating. And it is great that you're direct, and it's even better if you do things real time. And then the trick is giving, I have 2 kids, same thing, right? Giving
Yeah.
them something so they can actually hear it and they don't shut down.
Yeah.
When I yell at my son, who's very sweet and very sensitive, he shuts down and cries, and then it takes me an
Right.
hour to get him back. If I get myself calm, and so I'm just giving it to him in a context, then he can receive. And I think, one other piece, Jody, that is always good is to start with your positive intention.
Yeah.
I want to set you up for success and I need your help, right? Even having those sorts of words that, a prefrontal that you do in advance can be supportive.
Okay.
There's a
I'm
whole
taking note.
psychological
Yeah.
element to it too. So, I guess what have been your biggest learning lessons? I mean, obviously, there are a lot of different people are coming to you because they're hitting an inflection point in one way, shape, or form, which we've touched on a little bit. But what do you notice about the CEO mentality? You mentioned that fundraising itself is really challenging. So, can you tell us a little bit? And you've been doing this for 17 years. So, how you've seen the CEO mindset shift and kind of where it was and then
Or
where things
not.
are now?
When people were throwing money at you in a private company, then obviously you didn't have to quite have the same backbone. But have you seen the style need to change to go through all this?
You mean to style over the last 15 years of what's needed to be a good CEO?
Even though has anything changed in the last couple of years?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, the thing I've been talking about lately is the concept of agility quotient. And I think that's the new super intelligence where we've had IQ and then EQ. And, I'm talking about EQ, which is the intersection of IQ and EQ with a lot of presence. And there's a quote I love from Socrates, which is, I am the wisest man in Greece because I alone know that I know nothing. And what I'm seeing really go by the wayside is this pure expertise driven leadership and this overconfidence. I was talking to a CEO last week who said, my CMO is always, who's also a medical doctor, my CMO is always confident and sometimes right. And that overconfidence is something to be really concerned about. And I'd say it's this thing of people not knowing what they're not good at.
Yeah.
And that's that vulnerability and that honesty, that's what builds great teams. The overconfidence, which is the hierarchical model that we used to come from based on power and control and avoiding vulnerability at all costs, that no longer scales.
Yeah. I always say to in situations, and Morgan knows this, if I'm 100% sure, I'm going to tell you I'm 100% sure.
Yeah.
Short of that, I'm saying, here's what I think and what do you think? Because if I know I don't know for sure, then I'm not going to try and oversell it because at this stage of my life, I'd rather have it be collaborative or you tell me because if it's not my strength, it's not my strength.
I love that. And what I'd also offer to you, Jody, because you clearly have strong opinions and you wouldn't be doing what you do so well for so long if you didn't, especially in an area like compensation, is if you're going to share your strong opinion, or if it's a strongly opinion loosely held, you let people know that.
Right.
Because I think for a lot of my leaders, because there's a confidence that you get to have a CEO, you need to let people know how to receive your feedback because the teams might not understand if there is flexibility because of the confidence
I
or the
have no issue in the work environment. I mean, we have had no turnover in our team. Morgan, in her own right, has been with the firm for almost, I think we're going in year 10. And then the other people, no one has left. Everyone stays because actually it is very collaborative. Where I see the friction, and I'm sure this happens with executives, and I even saw this like you talk about, which is so right, is that the child, when you have kids at home and other situations, personal around you, what you're doing at work may not be effective in those dynamics, and you've got to adjust accordingly.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. And so what works for you to situationally adjust? Like what's your secret sauce to having such great
I'm
retention?
still looking for it. I'm curious. I'm in the kitchen and I'm trying because, like I said, I know that I used to have those situations where I felt like I could win the battle, but I would lose the war. And that would be because of my own bad behavior of saying something that was not complimentary or using I like the word like mother, fuck you or motherfucker, you fucking kidding me. And some people take a very hostility to any kind of swear word. So I've taken that out of my language. I've
Mhm.
definitely taken out of raising my voice. But it's just the sheer fact sometimes of being confident and having that presence is too much for someone who is not confident or in a job where they may be in over their head or someone who's got other personal things going on. I find this especially challenging in environments where you're dealing with service people who do not understand that they need to be service people. And the answer to most of these situations is, how can I help? As opposed to, I didn't do that. Don't speak to me. When someone says don't speak to me like that and you're just being direct or as you said,
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
And but that just drives me nuts. What do you do in that situation when you're being clear and kind, right? None of the hostility, and someone says, don't speak to me like that.
Yeah. So you could say, tell me more. Just tell me
Okay.
more. Just tell me more. Right? What we resist persists. And so if you fight against something, you're gonna get the fight energy. And so if
Right.
you acknowledge it and then you meet it with curiosity, say more about your no.
Okay.
And just
Mm,
hold space for them to respond. Don't and I think that's what we can do as leaders when we're so used to controlling the narrative. If we can surrender, and I'd say that's, to your question earlier about what do CEOs most need to learn, it's actually surrendering control and being open to the dance. And I think that's where leadership is going, is it's much more of a dance and an invitation
what
of,
if you as the leader are the one where the results are going to be your responsibility? Right? They're not gonna care that someone else gave you input. At the end of the day, what happens is on your tail.
Mhm.
So, and someone's giving you pushback and you just know they're not right. So then what do you do? Where you don't want to, you don't have options to hear more and to dance. You need to be directive. What do you do in that situation?
Well, I mean, first, is it the right person on the team? So first, I'd just establish if there's someone that really doesn't have that awareness, I'd be questioning if they're the right people to keep. And then if you think they are and they're coachable, then it depends on who they are. If they have, if they don't have a good attitude and they can't receive feedback, I really don't think you keep them. If they can receive the feedback, it's a matter of how do you share the feedback in a way that they can respond to positively.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, Morgan, you're up. I know you're dying to ask some
Oh, I'm just
questions.
like, I'm chuckling to myself over here because I think it's Julie, well, first of all, I really appreciate your perspective on it because obviously it's very research driven and you're not coming up like, oh, well, the rainbows and the stars aligned and this is how we think we should do it.
Right.
Like it's very fact based and you're very data driven, the piece of it, like how you go into an organization and your first thing to do is, okay, well, what are the feelings towards leadership? Like it's very actionable, which is obviously why part of the reason why you've been so successful among other reasons. But I think one of my next questions would really be the market has evolved over the last couple of years. And as Jody mentioned, venture dollars were getting thrown at pizza making robotic companies in 2021. And now those types of companies are not going to receive funding.
Mhm.
And we know that there's been a pinch in the life science sector because of federal cuts. So life sciences have kind of taken a hit. There's been
Yeah.
all of these inflection points, and the ground seems like it's shifted in terms of where money is going, how much money is going to certain places. And a lot of that, I would think, and what we see on the compensation side and working with executives is it's a lot of resilience.
Yeah.
So, how do you see that translating towards what the needs of your clients are who are coming to you, where that growth stage might be a little bit of a longer runway, but they are still raising capital? But I would imagine that they have a different set of concerns and challenges now than what they had 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's a great so I have a number of clients right now that are in that pinch point, where, I just kicked off a group of the biotech sisterhood of 18 CEOs that are also navigating inflection points, and all women that have raised at least 50 million. And it's a tough market. It's a tough market because the money isn't coming as fast or as easy. And so I think there's certainly a scrappiness where, if people are getting really deliberate about the people on their team and what they really need. And it's been kind of, fun in a way where folks have realized where they can cut. And I'd say what we're seeing across the board, even, beyond life sciences, even with Meta, is just intentionally doing layoffs to reestablish the talent that they need in this market. And it's not even about, in some places, it's not even about less, it's just more focused in the areas that they need to be ahead to be competitive.
Yeah. When you're dealing with your your clients, do you coach them on how to negotiate their compensation?
I do. Yeah, it's definitely a piece that comes in the mix.
What
And
are the tips?
oh gosh, what are the tips? Well, certainly talk to someone like you to understand the benchmark. So I think the thing is always there can be a lot of, emotionality in it. And so I definitely get in the data. So always
I think
con-
number one, take the emotion out of it.
yeah,
Conversations around compensation are not emotional.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Two,
agree.
data driven.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you guys are better coaches at this probably than I am. But I think it's know your data, and then you ask for it, and you
Yeah.
think of a way to ask for it that's not attacking or threatening. And I'd say one of the hardest things, like I have a client where they had a really critical C-level team member just leave because he didn't think he was being heard. But he hadn't had the direct conversation about it. He'd asked things in a nonchalant, indirect way. The
Agreed, that
sequels,
emotion I spoke about the habits, right? He's avoidant, so he avoided the conversation, and then he avoided, he felt badly without a conversation. But I think so. Number one is that you've got to have the conversation,
yes.
and then with that conversation, it's not emotional, and it's got to be data driven. And what I like is when you're offering, you know what you want in a as a for an executive position or any position. The first offer they give you is always negotiable, and then in addition to that, you have to know what the different compensation levers are. I mean, I just had this with a more junior colleague who said that they were given an offer And I said, well, what does that include? Is that a base pay? Is there a bonus opportunity? Is there an additional, like a profit sharing or equity or some other long-term incentive? So then you've got to ask to clarify before you negotiate, what exactly are your options? And then to come back, I like ranges. I don't like to say, here's my number. I would like the number is between 350 and 375 so that either way you're happy, but if there's a correlation between then a bonus incentive, so if you go to the lower number then the incentive is higher, but to give options so that it seems collaborative.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I love what you're saying, Jody. And I think part of it in the options is for someone to know what parts of the compensation matter most to them, right? Sometimes it is that hard base pay, sometimes it's the
Yes.
equity. They've got to think about their own financial situation, but realizing there's
So
certain
true.
levers that they negotiate with that where the company might have more flexibility. And if to the extent that they can get data around them, whether or talking to HR or otherwise, to understand where there is flexibility in the compensation, that can be helpful.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd say is doing it on a timely basis. Everyone holds off too long to do this till they get frustrated. And so there's never a good time, if you're going to ask a boss for more money at some level, but not doing it is the worst thing.
Do you think any of that's on leadership though too, where you have key players and people who are really important to the company and you kind of wait it out and play a game of chicken until they come to you versus you going to them and saying you're a valued individual at this company and we want to reward you for your performance through X amount of dollars or Y amount percentage of equity?
In theory, wouldn't that be great if our companies took care of us like we expect our parents to? And I think that's, what so many people hope in the world, but it's just not reality. There are some companies that do a pretty good job with it, but most don't. And what I'll say is I actually just I led a year-long women's COO group. And they were all like the president or COO of an investment firm. And they all were underpaid and undervalued and were doing 5 jobs. And with each one in that group had a negotiation with their CEO about their compensation. They all got raises. And the other thing that was kind of fun, I don't know if you've heard of the Enneagram.
Yes.
There's a personality assessment. I use it with all my clients. I love it because it gives you your greatest strength and also your strength overdone to your blind spot. All the women in this group were the type 2, the considerate helper. And it's sort of the classic feminine archetype that wants to give before they receive. And so it was really hard for
Right.
them
They
to make
think they have to
that.
earn it first versus men just require it. I mean, do you see a difference with the men versus women in these dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, you know the answer to that. And it can be men versus women. It can be
Well, way to
masculine
say
versus
it.
feminine.
Yeah, I like the lawyering part where you don't ask a question where you don't know the answer to it. But yes, right? So women tend to be more reticent, like they feel like they're imposing or they have to earn it before they can ask for it versus men just require it.
Yeah, men are always like in so many companies I have, the men are all asking for it proactively. And especially again in my investment fund clients, like every
Yeah.
year there's a cycle where there's a negotiation, they didn't get paid enough. And it's the men that are out making the negotiation and the women that are there being the good person, but not
Yeah.
being appreciated for that, but then not getting the raise.
Yeah, or that's where, women are called, "Oh, you're such a bitch," versus "attaboy." It's these old adages. I mean, how much do you think this has changed?
I think it's gotten a lot better. I think that, we have more women leaders in organizations, so that's changing. I think we have some good men, but it's not across the board. And there's definitely gaps in, where you see kind of a certain prototype and things haven't been updated. So I'd say it's better, but there's a lot more to be done.
Do you think there's a difference for the men who have daughters and wives versus the ones who do not?
I definitely see that, but I also see the horrible surprises where it's not consistent at all.
Yeah. That's, I think, a mindset problem more than anything else, where they're so segregated between work and home, and they don't see how the decisions that they're making, especially if they're in leadership at work, how the trickle down effect comes basically down the ladder for their own family in
You're
different ways.
just hoping that your husband, coming from one of 3 boys, now being married to you, who is obviously a very capable woman, and the fact that you're having a daughter, you're hoping against hope that this is gonna impact your family. But that's actually where I'm going on this, because Julie, you said something so interesting. I don't even know if you realized it, that you expect, like, that people expect, like, that their like, in a work situation, that someone's gonna take care of them like their parents do. But not everybody even feels that way in today's world, that their parents took care of them, right? We've seen situations where parents did everything and kids are like, my parents sucked. So, how you are a mom, you mentioned your kids. How are you negotiating and navigating between what you do at work and what you do at home? And what are your tips for either a soon to be working mom or a working mom?
Oh gosh, that's a long conversation. What are my quick tips? So with my kids, I think it's teaching responsibility, and I think it's holding accountability where the things matter, right? Kids are kids, and you have to let them be kids. And my job is to take care of my kids at least till they're 18 or have a job. So it's a different kind of mindset, but there's a responsibility to when they don't do what they say they're going to do. That is followed through on, and I think what's really hard, like in any life, is having the conversation, right? As parents, like in work, it's much more efficient to just avoid the difficult conversations and maybe yell and then move through, and to
Right.
go back. And my kids, I joke, they get sermons with me, and
Really, Sherman?
they ignore it. They pretend like they're ignoring it, and then I'll hear
You're
my
right.
daughter say how she used the exact same theory that I've given her on her friends, and so it actually seeps in.
Like, you've been, you pretend like you're not listening, but you've been listening the whole time.
Yeah. So that's I'm sure the two of you experienced that, where, of like the greatest compliment is imitation, right? They don't
I
listen to.
remember once coming downstairs where my son had, basically, I caught him in a lie. He was in high school and Morgan was in college. And I came downstairs to our house in Mill Valley, and Blake had his door. I caught him lying and I didn't quite nail him for it. I was waiting to see like more information because he's sort of a squealer that way. And so I came down, and sure as shit, he's on the phone with Morgan and he's mimicking me. Mom, my way or the highway? And Morgan's like, and she said, "I told you when you called school that you sound like her." And they're like negotiating this. So I opened the door just a little, and I'm like, "Really? Seriously?" And Morgan's like, "Is that mom?" And Blake's like, "Oh shit!" Right? I'm like, "I heard you mimic me, my way or the highway." But guess what? Actions, consequences. So I believe in the sermon and the whole thing. Very important.
Yeah, and then to ask your question about what advice for single moms, I mean, I think having good boundaries, with
Not a
kids.
not a single mom, just a working mom.
Yeah, just a working mom, like, having good boundaries, you have to be able to, like, have boundaries to take care of yourself, and I think that's a mistake that, most of us, and Morgan, you're about to go do this, where your biology, I think, as women, we're biologically different than men, right? We're here
Yeah.
to nurture and caretake, even if we're executives, and so there's this person that was part of your body that thou is out in the world that you've got to take care of at all costs and self-sacrifice, which is what we do as mothers. And then there's this piece of how do you keep yourself whole? And that kind of like, you can't give what you don't have. And so really taking a priority to manage your mental and physical and emotional health, so that you can give things scalably, but it requires good boundaries. And sometimes what I find is, and I've had this situation where the father is not aligned on the boundaries. And so I'd say if there's a tip I have for you, Morgan, is being really aligned on your parenting philosophy. Jody might have had it a little easier raising you guys as a single mom,
Yeah. I'd have
right?
to go with anybody. I'd call my mother, and we were always pretty much aligned because she's very old school that way, so it was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think somebody gave me valuable advice. They were like, you also have to let your husband parent. And their parent, like how they parent and their role as a father is very different in your role as a mother. And, we have a dog, and we got the dog like a year and a half ago. And I was chuckling to myself the other night, like I had like the flash forward because I was talking to the dog to do something. And my husband looks at the dog and he's like, listen to her. And I was like, ooh, that's a new line. I like that line. That was a
Yeah.
good reinforcement. So it's like you kind of see the little pieces of it. But I guess before we wind up, because of course we're so appreciative that you've taken the time to join us, is we have a couple of like little rapid fire questions that we like to ask our guests who join. And the first one is, when you travel for work, are you a carry-on person or are you a checked bag person?
A checked bag, embarrassingly.
Yeah.
So funny. Have you always been a checked bag person?
No, I used to be better about this, to be honest. When I was a strategy consultant at Bain, I had to do all carry on because I was on the road so much. I think these days I like to bring my workout with me. So I bring all of my exercise gear along the ride, my workout gear, my swimming gear. And so to have that flexibility when on the road really keeps me whole.
Yeah, you can see that for the piece of it. I mean, nobody else will see your background, but from what we can see your background, you are an exercise person. So that must be where you get your Julie time.
Yes, it's exactly right.
As we wind up, we thank you so much for being with us. Any like single last tip or recommendation as CEOs are going through maybe challenging times? Not doesn't necessarily have to be fundraising, but what's something that you would tell them to say to themselves or rinse and repeat and keep focused on?
It's a really good question. I think really staying curious and open. Focus on what you can learn versus what you already know. I'd also say holding things lighter. I
Yeah.
think as CEOs, we can want to be confident and strong and hold it, like having strong opinions, but loosely held, because we all know this is a time where we're navigating endless uncertainty, and to be curious and creative and to be open to what comes, because right now we're building the plane while we're flying it. And to have that mindset where you're inviting the learning of your team and inviting the learning from everywhere versus expecting it to all come from you.
Yeah. That's so great. All right. Well, we're building the plane while we're flying it. That's our key takeaway today. Julie, thank you. Morgan, I want you to remember that too. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate being together with you today.
Thank you for joining us today for the Caplander podcast. If you loved this episode, share it and make sure to subscribe to Caplander for more conversations like this.